He is God.
Hello and welcome to Central College Church. Whether you're online or indoors with us today, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Nate Rector and I'm the Connections Director here at Central College Church. So thanks for deciding to worship with us today, and now here are a few things we want you to know before our service begins. So next week is Mother's Day. That's right, dads, it's right around the corner. Now, we want to let you know that we will have family photos on Mother's Day between our services, and that will be set up over in the Jewel Walk, which is near our Welcome Center. So make sure you guys dress your best for your mom and come get a free family photo. We'll be editing digital versions of those photos that you can then take and get printed. Now, today at Central College, we will be offering communion for our indoor worship once more. So if you're watching online with us, you can pause the video and gather your elements. And those that are in service with us, we have some available at the entrances of the sanctuary and at Kirk Hall. Now, I really want you to stay connected with us at Central College, and here's how you can do that. You can always visit our website, ccpc.us, for all of our updates about our services and different ministries that we have going on here at the church. Or you can also fill out our digital Connect card. Now, we have a link for that down in the description of the video that you can fill out. And by filling out that form, it really lets us know how we can better serve you as a church or provide any prayer requests. Now, you can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Central College Church. Well, from all of us here at Central College, thank you for being here today. I'm excited that you're joining us on this wonderful, beautiful Sunday morning. And now, let's worship together.
Good morning, Central College. It's so great to see those of you here in person, and hello to all of there out on the internet. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and we will be glad. Hey, those of us here, why don't you stand and wave at somebody, since you can't hug them, but wave at somebody and we'll get started with worship.
Nothing is impossible through you. Blind eyes are
it's you who gives me strength. Nothing is impossible through you. Blind eyes are open, strongholds are broken. I am living by faith. Nothing is impossible. I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe in you. I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe in you. We sing praise and we sing of a God that can do anything. We sing of a God that can show us the way through anything. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, standing in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop
You know, there is a method to our madness in the songs that we select. The truths we try to sow into our hearts before we then hear God's word. This truth that He's always at work, He's doing something when you don't see it and don't feel it. I think, okay, that's the challenge, right? And then the other song, I live by faith. And so I've got this truth, but I don't sense it and feel it, and I'm supposed to live by faith. How do I connect those? You ever notice when you see a kid that you haven't seen for a little while, you say, my gosh, Johnny, you've grown so much. And he thinks, really, I did? I didn't notice. But you step in and you can see the change. Well, that change was happening every day, all the time, though they weren't always aware of it. It's no different with you and me in our lives. We don't see it, but God is doing it because He's faithful to you and He's faithful to His promises. Father, this day I pray You'd help us to open our eyes just a little more. We'd see this Old Testament story about these women and their lives seem so plain in one sense, but might we see how profound they are. And it's not just their lives. It's any life and every life who'd hitch their wagon to You, the author of life. Jesus, in Your name we pray. Amen. Please take a seat. Great to see you this morning. Hey, you know, even with our social distancing and our spaced out ways and our masks, more folks are venturing out to dare come back together. So I applaud you. And you sitting at home on your couch in your jammies still, come on, give it a try. Come back. These are really nice folks. Now, I noticed that when we did our hello this morning, we got to work on that. I don't know what we can do, but turning and waving with a mask doesn't feel as warm and friendly. So I don't know what we can. Maybe if you could bring candy, we could throw it to each other. We'll come up with something. Well, glad you came out this morning. We are wrapping up a series that we've been doing the last 3 weeks. It's our 4th week on it. It's a story from the book of Ruth. We've called it Love Story. This is the ending of it. This is the conclusion. Now, you know, endings can really make a story or really bust a good story, right? I mean, it's like, come on, that was a lousy ending. You just get all upset. Or you think, that was good. My references are probably movies that are a little older for some, but they're classics in some ways. You remember Ever After, the Cinderella story? I love the poetic justice when a mean stepmother and sister, had to spend their days washing clothes, and she became the princess. That was a good one, and everybody likes when the boy and girl hook up and it's all good for them. But sometimes a twist in a story can really, the ending, you walk away just trying to figure out what clues in the story would have told me it was going to end that way. I remember years ago when I watched this movie called Sixth Sense. It was a strange movie, but in the end you find out the main character was dead the whole time. You're like, how's that possible? And sure enough, if you go back and watch it a couple of times, like some of us nerdy types do, you figure it out. Probably the first one I can remember when I was thinking about this was the original Planet of the Apes. The very end of the movie, the Statue of Liberty is sticking out, and you think all that you saw happen in this crazy world was here on Earth. It's just like, okay, anyways, I think that one didn't work for you guys. It did for me, but so this story has an ending, and it brings some resolution to it, and you think, okay, this is good. The boy gets the girl, and they seem like they're going to live happily ever after, But I want to tell you that there's a whole lot more to the conclusion than just a little bit of good. There's something greater and grander that's taking place that I think the Scriptures want us to see for what can happen with us. Now, I titled the message, Love Redeemed, because that's the focus that God's been about here, is the redemption of a life. Not just, I'll just bring you back to where you were, but something that restores it to something beyond anything it could have been on your own efforts and your own desires. to live and to love, to sacrifice and serve, and spend your life, and then never to see what resulted from your life, or maybe only get a little glimmer of all that you did, and this is all that you can produce, so to speak. Naturally, you think, well, my life was a failure. I missed it, right? It was all for naught. And so often you would be wrong, right? You think about the people who lived before us, the heroes and saints of yesteryear, who served and sacrificed, who labored and loved, and you think, for what? And then we stand on their shoulders, whether it's in our faith or our country, and we say, had it not been for them, we would never have this. Well, I want to tell you, that's not just true for those folks. There is a this that God is moving his plan toward. And if we could see how we can be a part of it, it changes how you think about your life now. The problem is we live in a culture that's all about the now. The men and women who lived giving their lives for something in the future, that value system is being lost today. Because today it's all, I got to get it right here, otherwise my life's worth nothing. There's no sense of something beyond myself. And that's where real sacrifice and service, that's where faith comes into play. And I think that's what the story is going to show us quite a bit. So you remember how the story begins? It's somewhat innocuous kind of story. I mean, you just got a guy and his wife and their 2 kids going to another town to, avoid some bad economics, and they try to get some business in another place. Big whoop, right? The guy dies. The boys end up marrying women outside their race and outside their faith. Mama's not too happy, you can only imagine. And they never have any grandkids, so she's definitely, because, after your kid gets married, you're like, when's the grandbaby coming? And no grandbabies for 10 years, and then the boys die. That thing went from bad to worse. And this is how the story begins. This is where we enter the story, in this condition with this older widow and one of the widowed daughter-in-laws, deciding to go back to the homeland of Bethlehem. And we started this story, we call it Love Lost, getting in touch with our own losses of love, our own shattered dreams and disappointments. And, we felt the pain of, I really thought this was going to work out, and it didn't. It killed the dream. We sang that song. You heard it. And those were our initial feelings. And some of those feelings even bubbled up toward God. Like, hey, what did you do? What didn't you do? Why didn't you care for me? Certainly that's what our main character was feeling. Remember, she said, don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. And maybe we got in touch with our own feelings of bitterness and disappointment with God. There was a bit of sweetness in the story, but it was hard to see going back to where you once lived and had to face the music. It's never easy, never a song you want to hear, right? And she's going back with her daughter-in-law. She doesn't really see how significant that is. But God was doing something new. He was at work. It was barley season, it said, and they're coming back, but they're just focused on their own pain. You ever been there? You're just caught up in yourself. You really can't see what else is happening. That's the love lost. And even though this foreigner girl who goes with her makes this amazing commitment to her, wherever you go, I'm going to go. Where you lodge, I'll lodge. Where you die, I'll die. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. That kind of resolve, allowed her to go, but the old widow couldn't really see it. She was still too much in pain. That's how we began. And Love Awakened was chapter 2. Because what we see happening there is that the kindness that Ruth showed to Naomi had some feet to it, because we get to this new place and Ruth goes out looking for food. This is hard times. There was a social system in the place where they could get food by gleaning from fields that people would let the poor pick up the leftovers. And she went out, and just so happened that she came upon a field that was of a relative of her deceased husband. And while she was there, it just so happened that he came by and noticed her, talked to her, expressed kindness to her. We said, these coincidences, these circumstances, these God things are just, happenstance. When she got home that first day, you remember, Naomi realized more was going on here. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "He has not showing his kindness to the living and the dead," she added, "that the man is our close relative. He is one of our kinsmen redeemers." So she had thought God had forsaken and abandoned, but she begins to see this little glimmer. Maybe, just maybe, he hasn't forgotten us. You know what that's like when you start noticing just a little something that's on the horizon. You wonder, do I dare hope again? Do I dare get excited that maybe something is out there? Maybe something good for me is on the horizon? Can I even let that come into my heart? That was love awakened. It's like, wow, something's taking place here. Last week is when things started to heat up a little bit. We called it Love Pursued. Because old bitter Naomi didn't just start feeling blessed, she started getting a little bold. Because she came up with this somewhat provocative idea to say to Ruth, this guy, he's been really kind to you. I mean, really kind. And he's a kinsman redeemer. He's this goel, this word we talked about, that this guy could make our future better. He could not only provide for you, he could provide for me and my family legacy. This could redeem the whole of us. But here's the twist in the story of last week. Good plan, that in one sense, that Naomi has for Ruth. Go and present yourself to this guy. I mean, this is it. We think the whole story is going to come together in this relationship. But Naomi does something that we didn't expect. She says, Ruth, when you go talk to him, don't mention me. Don't put me in the equation. Don't focus on redemption of my life and my legacy. Just get yourself covered. The kindness that we've seen from Naomi to Ruth, God to them, Boaz to them, begins to soften Ruth's or Naomi's heart, that she's able to let go of her own concern for herself. Whatever scarcity mentality she used to have, if I give you this last piece of pie, that's all there'll be. She realizes, my God is a baker, and there's a whole lot more of that came from Ruth. You take care of yourself. You go just present yourself to him. You just show up at night, and I know there was plenty of intrigue with that whole deal, but you just show up at night, and when he said, hey, what do you want? You just say, this little pretty little thing is here for you. Let it go at that. And Ruth goes that night to make that pitch, but when the time comes, she doesn't pitch like that. Because Ruth has never been about herself. The kindness that she expressed to her mother-in-law when she decided to go back to this old country, when she said, I'll be with you, and your God will be my God, and your people will be my people. When she committed her whole self, that included her sex life and her finances. And she said to this guy, you want me, it's going to cost you. You got to take my mother-in-law. And guess what? Yeah, that's right. That'd be enough to turn somebody off, right? But guess what? And if we ever have a kid, he ain't going to have your name either. He's going to have my former husband who died, his name. He's going to carry on that legacy. You talk about a sticker shop. Boaz is like, okay, girl, you got to be kidding me. But he said, I sense God is in this thing. Okay, I'm gonna do this for you if I can. And so we're ready to go. Story's over. This is all good, right? And then he throws this wrinkle at the last minute. Because you got to have a cliffhanger to get you to come back next week. The cliffhanger was, there's somebody else who has dibs on you before me. There's another guy. And so you just got to go home and wait, and I'll try to deal with it. That's where we are today. It was like waiting. And I want us to say a little something about waiting too, yeah? Because don't you love to wait? One of your favorite things to do just to wait. Who here just says, hey, let's go in the long line? Let's just pick that one, right? Let's let somebody else go in front of us so we'd have longer to wait. Is there anybody like that? I don't think there is, right? So I saw my mom yesterday. She's 91, and she told me this wonderful story. My brother's having a surgery, and so the family's been extremely concerned about him. And my mom was, as mothers are, worried, right? She's worried about him. And she was real anxious, and she woke up yesterday morning, and she had, just feeling pressure inside, and she has a plaque up in her bedroom wall, and it says, "Trust Jesus." And she said, "Lord, I've not been trusting you. I've just been taking this on myself." And she said, "I'm just going to give this over to you. I apologize. I just surrender to you." And she went about her day, and she was writing notes, and as she does, I can't tell you how many grandchildren and great-grandchildren and nieces and nephews. She's the only one living of the 13 that was in her family, so she keeps up with everybody. Her mind doesn't miss a beat. So I showed up to see her yesterday, and she's telling me this story. She said, after I did that, the peace of God came over me in such a powerful way. She said, she didn't know any of the news. She hadn't heard any update. She didn't call anybody. Was totally at peace. And she was busy doing things she does. And right at the time, she was writing a note to one of the grandkids. And so here's my statement to you. When you wait on God, wait on God. Serve. Do what you're supposed to do, and trust when you're trusting God to do what only He can do. The evidence of your trust, of your waiting and resting, is your serving. You're letting go so that you can pick up the things you can be about. And I, once again, learned from her such an example. So let's look at the story. If you got a Bible with you this morning, why don't you open up chapter 4. And I want to pick up this story where we left off. All right, let's see if I can find. Here we go. 4:1. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there. When the kinsman redeemer he had mentioned, remember I told you there was a guy that had first dibs, he mentioned came along, Boaz said, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here." They did so. And then he said to the kinsman redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to her brother Elimelech." Our brother Elimelech, that was her husband who had died. "I thought I should bring this matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here, in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so, but if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line." Okay, so this is the story I've told you. This is where we are, okay? But this whole piece about buying a piece of property from Naomi, this is all new information to us, but okay, so is this kinsman redeemer going to buy this land? The guy says, "Yeah, I'll buy it." You're telling me I can get a piece of land cheap? All I got to do is pay the liens that were on the property and give Naomi a little bit of money, but then when she passes, she has no heir, so I'll get the property. It'll add to my estate. My long-term gains certainly outweigh my short-term costs. It's a no-brainer, right? You guys are business people. You think, this is a good investment, right? That was the mentality. And so as soon as the guy says yes, then Boaz adds a little twist. He says, there's a little more to the price tag. This is like the fine print. You ever notice that? What did they just say? When they do these announcements, I love this stuff. This is it. On the day you buy the land from Naomi and from Ruth the Moabitess, you acquire the dead man's widow in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. You don't just get the land. You got to take this gal that came back with her, the widow, and you got to have a kid with her, and you got to do the whole kinsman. You got to redeem the whole deal, buddy. Now, why do you think Boaz did it this way? Why did he give him the slow pitch first? The guy's, yeah, throw me another one. And then he throws the high heater, and what was that? Well, what was going on here? I mean, is this like a bait and switch? What's he doing here? I have no idea, but I can tell you this, though. it does emphasize the scope and the cost of the kind of redemption that God was really interested in. Haven't you noticed how many quick fix, just bailout opportunities people will jump on? Let's just do this. Let's hurry fast through this, make this change. And there's no real lasting change. There's no transformation. When you get in these rebound relationships, when you want to relocate, you want to get a new job, even take on a little religion, you quick fix just to kind of ease the pain. And let's just change the situation. There's no change inside. This guy's up for something simple. It doesn't really cost me much. Redemption costs so much because it includes all of me. And when the guy realizes that, he says, whoa, I can't do that. Listen to his line. At this, the kinsman redeemer said, then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it for yourself. I cannot do it. Now, I don't know why this guy decided not to do it. Maybe he was already happily married and another wife wouldn't be a good idea. I don't know. It makes sense to me, but, maybe he didn't want to split what he had with his other, his one kids and some other kids. I don't know, but there's a little irony in there, isn't there? That he was concerned about his own legacy. If I do this, it might endanger my own future, and I can't afford to do that. The guy thought the risk was too great for the reward. And as a result, he walks off the stage of what God's doing. And we've never heard from him again. We don't know who he is. He thought he was going to, miss out if he would take this risk. And now he's not in the picture at all. I think this is so often the case, right? I think of that story then Jesus was talking to the rich man, and he said, look, sell your possessions and come follow me. And the guy said, I got too much stuff. I can't give it up for you. When the man heard it, he went away sad because he had great wealth. He said, no. How many people have walked away because they couldn't see how God could do better for them than they could do for themselves? Hey, what you're asking me, Jesus, is going to cost me way too much. Oh, no. You'll get so much more, but you can't see that right now. I got to live by faith. I got to trust you. I got to see that you're in this. We get faced with this stuff all the time, and we don't know it's by faith. This guy said no. Boaz then stepped up. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, that was her husband, and Kilion and Mahlon, those were the two sons. I've also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name, so he knows what's involved, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or the town records. Today you are witnesses. Then the elders and all those at the gate said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, who Tamar bore to Judah. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. Then he went to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. And they lived happily ever after. Let's pray and go home early. Because this would be a pretty good ending, wouldn't it? I mean, Ruth is rewarded for her faith and kindness to her mother-in-law. This barren widow who was a foreigner now finds a rich sugar daddy kind of guy. It's pretty good. She got a kid. She's riding off in the sunset with her baby, and the credits are rolling and the movie's over. And yet there's this strange twist by these elders making this note about this genealogy. And there's more to the chapter that goes on about Naomi and her grandson. And then there's this fuller genealogy that's mentioned, and you think, what's going on here? What's the story trying to tell us at the very end? You ever notice how some movies end and then there's one more piece and people say, did you see that last piece? And no, I left the theater. It's like, you missed it. Don't miss this. There's one more piece here. But before we get there, let's make sure you caught the themes of this book, okay? Here, just a couple wrap-ups. Our loss and God's love. Let's just make sure we walk away with some things from this book. Sure, we call this story love story, right? And sure, there's a little bit of romance in it, but that wasn't our point nor the author's point. It's really about God's love, his covenant love to his people, that he promised, I will never leave you or forsake you. I won't let go of you, even though you'll experience losses. And you'll think, why is this not here? I thought you loved me. My love hasn't left you, though that's left you. Sometimes when we lose other things, God's love for us becomes the main thing. I know we have strong emotions toward God when we have pain. I know that. I've had them myself. You think, what's going on? This feels unfair. But hopefully this story, as you've been able to stand back and look at it, you've been able to see your own story that, God, even in the hard times, he is there and he's doing something good. My losses and his love, that's a reality for everyone who links their life to him. Don't let go of that when you don't see it. Hold on to that truth even though you don't feel it. That leads me to the second thing. Our choices in God's control. God gets blamed and credited for all kinds of things, and which ones are true. In this story, there's only two things the scriptures say in this story that God did. I don't know if you remember them. The first one was that the Lord had ended the famine in Bethlehem in the very beginning, and that the Lord allowed Ruth to conceive a child. That's the only two things in the whole book that says God did. But what about when Ruth wandered onto Boaz's field and Boaz just showing up? And what about when Boaz was at the gate and the guy just happened to come by? What about all of that? Yeah, our choices and God's control. When is it, us kind of moving it along and God making it happen? I don't know. Go figure. But they work together. That's something for you to hold on to when you think, this door opened up. Is God in it? I want to take this step. Should I take it? There's a tension there. And that is life. And very few times do you get a scripture that says to you, and the Lord did this. Afterwards, you think, absolutely, you were in it. But this is how we live this life, with our choices and his control. And leads me to the last one. Our good and God's glory. There's certainly some good in this story, right? Even though there's been great loss and hardship, there's some good that's come. But I want to say to you, there's more than just good. There's something greater. There is a glory that's here. When the elders prayed that Ruth would be like Rachel and Leah, you know those ladies? You remember their stories? These guys weren't hoping that Ruth would be as cunning as Rachel was, or as homely and unloved as Leah was. That wouldn't have been a nice prayer, right? And when they referenced that any future child that they would have would be like Perez, anybody remember who he was? Okay, this little boy was conceived from his father-in-law when he had a one-night stand with his daughter-in-law. Oh, the Bible's filled with stories. Trust me, you've got to read your Bible, right? So these elders were not implying, well, I hope this kid has as much shame and embarrassment in his life like Perez had because he was an illegitimate birth. That's not what he's talking about. What's the point of mentioning these stories? Well, if you only see them in the moment and not on the grander scale, you miss what God is doing. And that's the part that every one of us need to sense today. Because if your evaluation of you and your life is only here, you're setting yourself up for unbelievable disappointment and frustration. Anger and control. You got to make things happen a certain way because this is what you want to happen for you, rather than understanding what God can accomplish through something called redemption. When he takes something that seems almost obscure and trivial and turns it into something significant and lasting. Look what happens to Naomi. This is the older woman, right? She doesn't just become a grandmother, and then that's great. For all you grandparents out there, I know you want to show me pictures. That's great. But think of this grandkid she's got. She's holding this baby. Just imagine this, okay? She's holding this baby. Does she see her son Malon in the kid? There's no Malon blood in this kid at all. This kid's half Moabite, and he's half Boaz. There's no blood relative here for her. Nothing close, maybe distant, obviously, but really nothing for her because it was her husband's relative. So there's nothing of her in this kid. I mean, you think this is what she gets back for all that she went through? I mean, wouldn't she rather have her husband back or her son back or at least a grandson that looks like her? This seems like a pretty lousy deal to me. Listen to what the women say. Then the women said to Naomi, "Praise be the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age." Then Naomi took the child, laid him in her lap, and cared for him. The women living there said, "Naomi has a son." And they named him Obed, and he was the father of Jesse, the father of David. This is what's trying to be conveyed to us. In the moment, there wasn't a whole lot of real fulfillment. But in the long term, this little child grew up to have another child who had another child who had a child named David. Naomi knew none of that. She was dead and gone. It was a story that's generations later. But the significance of what God was producing by allowing this Moabite daughter-in-law to come into the line of David, into the line of Jesus, changes everything, because the line of redemption isn't this pure line of everybody who does it right and is only the blood of Jewish people. It's a line that includes all kinds of people. And if you have no perspective on your life but the moment, you miss out what God is doing through you. I told you I went up to Cleveland to see my brother. So I have 8 brothers and sisters. And we were talking, all my brothers and sisters have come to Christ, all following Jesus today, pouring their example of faith into their kids. And my brother said something to me I had never heard before. He said, "You know why I think everybody in our family is faithful to Christ?" I said, "No." He said, "Mimi." I said, "Our grandmother?" He said, "Yeah. She used to go to church on Wednesday nights and would pray. Prayed for this family." I sat out there, I don't know. But the perspective of thinking of praying for the generations to come and not just in my own circumstances. This is what the story conveys to me, that God does so much more than just the moment of our own lives. And when we hook into that, it gives much more meaning to my life than what I can see. It gives me a certainty for what God's going to do. And the story goes on. Then this is the family, the line of Perez. Perez was the father of Herzon, Herzon the father of Ram, Ram the father of Benadab, Benadab the father of Nahshon, Nahshon the father of Salmon, Salmon the father of Boaz, Boaz the father of Obed, Obed the father of Jesse, Jesse the father of David. Your peace links to a much greater tapestry of God, puzzle of God. And when you embrace that, you can let go of some of the things that you think didn't work out the way you wanted them to. This isn't just exactly the way I thought it was going to be. But, oh God, do something much more than ever I imagined it could be. If you don't have that perspective, you will find yourself to be one frustrated, bitter, controlling person because it's all about what you can do. It's not about what he's doing. How many of you have this verse on your refrigerator? For I know that God works all things out for the good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So many people love Romans 8:28. But do they apply it in their day-to-day situations when they lose a job, lose a husband, lose an ability, go through some disappointments, some griefs? Do they see it then? That's when we live by faith. That's when it matters. Well, are you called? Because he certainly loves you. So the issue is, have you responded to that call? Have you surrendered to say, I yield my life to you? Because the only certainty I have that it'll work out in a not just good way, but a glorious way is when I surrender it to you. This morning, we're going to take communion. I can't think of a more practical expression of my surrender. When Jesus took communion, when he broke the bread and shared the cup, it was his statement to his followers, I've accepted the Father's plan for me. You got your little mixed communions today? Anybody, if you need one, Nate, can you pass a couple out? Just put your hand up and we'll get one to you. These are a little tough, I will admit, to peel back and hold it and not spill it. I shouldn't have worn white today, but they give me a big cup because I mess up easily. But it is a picture for us to renew ourselves, not just Jesus' commitment to me, but my commitment to him. On the night he was betrayed, he took this bread and he gave thanks for it and he broke it and he said, this is my body. It's going to be broken and I'm doing it for you. I'm sure they were scratching their heads, right? Supper's over. He takes the cup. It's the last cup of blessing they do in the Passover meal. And he says, this cup of the new covenant, our new agreement. We want to toast to something brand new. It's a covenant now in my blood. This is what makes you and I partners, brothers and sisters. This was his offer to us. When you take it, you're reciprocating. You're saying, I'm in. We didn't read this part in the story, but in the you can read chapter 4. The other kinsman redeemer took off his shoe and handed it to Boaz. They didn't shake hands back in that day. They took off shoes, and that way you could walk on the piece of property. That was the symbolic issue. This is the symbolic issue of our connection to Jesus. He extends this meal to us, and you reciprocate it by receiving it from him. That's your commitment. I ask you today, take and eat. Take and drink. Receive this one who gave his life for you, and you say to him, I'll give my life in service to you. Receive the elements this morning. Take the bread. Receive the cup. No one knew that day, Jesus, the impact of what was happening. So many had died on Roman crosses before. How would one Jew's death make such a change in the world? No one could see all that the Father was doing. You entrusted yourself to him so he could bring out a perfect and beautiful story of redemption for the world. Can we do the same? Can we trust you to bring a beautiful story of redemption through our lives, though it might end in an ugly way? Nothing was uglier than that cross. We might go to our grave with disappointment. Things didn't work out the way we wanted it to. But would we go in complete faith? I know all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose, for those I know he loves. And I'm included in that, for I answered his call and said yes to Jesus as my Savior and King. In your name I pray. Amen.
Hurricane, I am a tree, bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. And all of a sudden, I am unaware of those afflictions eclipsed by glory. I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves us so. How he loves us so. How he loves us. How he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. Yes, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Yeah, how he loves. We are his portion and he is our prize, drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. If grace is an ocean, we're all sinking. So heaven meets earth like an unforeseen kiss, and my heart turns violently inside of my chest. I don't have time to maintain those regrets when I think about the way that he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yes, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he
That was an ending there. How has he shown you he loves you? When's the last time you've been overwhelmed by God's love. You know, when you sense anybody's love, let me assure you of this. Nobody loves in and of themselves. Love does not originate from a mentality that you just came from the primordial soup. You know, the survival of the fittest mentality does not produce kindness and love. It produces aggression and competition. Love comes from the heart of God. And when you sense love from anyone, know it came first from God. And be overwhelmed by his love for you. I'm glad you came out this morning. We just got one final song. I just got one quick announcement for you that next week we're going to start a series. It's Mother's Day. In case you didn't know, call your mother, send her a note or get her some flowers or something. We're going to start a series called Family Life and get into all the realities of organized, perfect, blissful family. Anybody got one like that? Please come speak to us. The rest of you have a real family, then come be back. It'll be a good series. We mention every week for you to be a giver in some way. For a God who's given to you, don't just keep it. It'll rot. It'll turn to worms, just like manna of the Old Testament, right? It'll get stinky. But you pour it out, it'll be fresh and feed many. So whether you give here, the many ways that we have, or someplace, open up your hands and your hearts to others. And watch what God does through you. Let's sing one last song together and continue to praise the God who's been good to us.
Surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that he can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Just one word, you hear what's happening inside us. Just one word, and you revive every dream. Just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that he can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall he can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way.
So what's your story where you think, I don't like the way that's going to end? I don't see any good ending to this. What's in your mind right now? What's happening in your world? You think, I don't know how this is going to work out anything good. Here's this little insignificant story of these two women, and God does something that wasn't just good in their lifetime, but was glorious in the grand scheme of His story. Can you see yourself there? God certainly can, because He's there. Great to be with you, church. Blessings. Got moved.